to the Dream 100 Show, the epicenter of influence, collaboration, and exponential growth. You're about to discover the power of relationships. Dream 100 relationships. And you're one relationship away from a totally different business and life. This is your host, Michael Tasner.
Hey there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Dream 100 Show. My name is Michael Tasner, and I have a very special guest with us today, Mark Csordos. And Mark has just a lot of really interesting stories. He's written a couple of books. He's kind of transformed and just has started some new ventures and just a lot of really, really cool things. So, Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I would love to start and I want to have you tell our listeners a little bit more about your kind of entrepreneurial journey, and you can go as far back or as far forward as you would like, but just kind of start to talk through your entrepreneur journey a little bit.
I started my first business when I was 24 after graduating from Rutgers University. It was a mystery shopping business, and we pretty much, hit the ball right off the bat. We had clients, Pizza Hut, Manhattan Bagel, ShopRite. So we did pretty well for the 4 years. Made the New York Times. Believe it or not, I was even in Vogue magazine. I know looking at me, you wouldn't guess. So we had success with that. I sold the business around age 29. I then authored the book, Business Lessons for Entrepreneurs, which wound up getting picked up by Thompson Learning. And then that's kind of where the good side of the entrepreneur story stops for a while. And then in my 30s and 40s, I'm very open about it now. I do suffer from depression, and it's been very bad at times. So I would say, for those 2 decades, I kind of was in a business just kind of lost, really, in a wilderness. That was the word I was looking for. I had some low-level, management jobs at places that it wasn't going to lead to anything, to the places I worked for, wound up going bankrupt anyway. I had a couple of businesses that I started that never really even got off the ground. And, I don't know if they really stood a chance with me, trying to get through the depression. So around age 49, I got a management job with the company, and I was like, okay, you know what? It's a decent salary. Maybe, my wife gave me my entrepreneurial time. Those days are, behind me now. I got an okay job. I got a chance to move up. The pay is decent. Maybe we'll just ride this one out. And as it turned out, it was a very frustrating place to work. And then I relapsed with the depression. I was actually hospitalized for a couple of days, and I went on disability. And, it was at that time that I thought, why am I working so hard for these people? They don't really care about me. I don't think they utilize me the correct way. And, what I really want to do is to get back into entrepreneurship. So my wife and I had floated the idea years before about a laundromat, but it wasn't the right time. We didn't have the money then. So I said, I'm going to look back into that. And I dove, in those months that I was out, I dove headfirst into everything I could find laundromat, videos, books, articles, anything that I could possibly find. And I said, yes, I want to do this. And, I kind of found a back door in buying one. I tried to go through websites, like Buy, Biz, Sell, that type of thing. And I really got nowhere. So, being an entrepreneur, I figured, hey, what do I got to lose? I sent out a letter to places. And I just said, hey, I'm interested in buying a laundromat in the area. If you know anybody willing to sell, or, if you're interested, let me know. I actually had a couple people call me, and, I wound up 3 months after sending the letter, I had the keys in my hand. And, that's how I got back into my own business.
I love it. There's a lot to unpack there in your background, and we rapidly went, 30 years ahead. So take me back a little bit to age 24, starting a mystery shopping business. Tell our listeners just a little bit more. Why did you get into that business? And then kind of walk through a little bit of the process to what then made you make the decision to sell it.
Well, I was working, for the A&P, the Great Atlantic and Pacific tea company. They're no longer in business either. So maybe I'm bad luck. I don't know. But, I worked for them in, high school and college, full time in college. And I realized, there's no future in this. I don't want to do this. Again, they don't listen to me. So I was looking for a business that I could start. And, I was reading an article, and I can't even remember. The magazine doesn't even exist anymore. But it was like, 100 businesses you could start for under $10,000. So I was like, okay, that's my price range. And I came across mystery shopping. And for those that don't know what mystery shopping is that we would go into an establishment and rate their customer service based on preset criteria. And this would go into a report, both with a raw score and comments, so that the owner or whoever was in charge, the district manager, they would know what it was like to be a customer in their establishment. So our first client was Pizza Hut. So we would look for things like how long it took to get greeted, how long it took to get seated, how long for the waitress to come over. Did they suggest things? Salad bar, breadsticks. How was the food, the bathrooms? And this way they had an objective idea, because we as the customers don't know them. They don't know us. So how we're getting treated when we're having dinner on a Saturday is probably how everybody else is getting treated. So a lot of companies, we did this for grocery stores. We did it for unusual places like the New York Waterway, the New Jersey State Lottery. So there's a lot you can do with mystery shopping. I don't do it anymore, but I had figured at the time, I work for $1 billion company, A&P. They don't do it. We could definitely use it. It stands to reason that there's other companies out there that could also use it too. So being young and naive, I pretty much burned my bridges. So I wouldn't be able to go back to A&P, and I started the mystery shopping. And it did take, honestly, it took like 6 months to get Pizza Hut and another year to get my second client. And then once I got the second client, because they were a big name in my area, then it kind of it took off from there. But, I don't think I realized how hard it was going to be to start.
Tell us, with the Dream 100, everything is about that one relationship, that one business, that one joint venture that can help completely change the trajectory of your life or your business. So you mentioned, hey, things were tough the first 6 months of you didn't have a client for 6 months, but was there a relationship that you ended up securing? How did you, open that door to Pizza Hut? Was it, just kind of continuing to hit the same type of people up? Tell us a little bit more about that. And ideally, was there a kind of defining Dream 100 type relationship that then started moving that business in the right direction?
I definitely think there was. And, if they made a movie out of my life, which they won't, but this would be a big scene. I had sent sales letters out. Again, I didn't have a business degree. I was a communication major, and, I worked at A&P. I stocked shelves. So I didn't really know anything about business. I sent sales letters out, and that most sales letters, you get a very low response rate. Well, one day, a guy owned 18 Pizza Huts, got the letter. He called me. And he's like, can you fax me over some information? And I said, I can't do that because I didn't own a fax machine. So he goes, oh, your fax machine is broken. So I quickly said, well, hey, what if I came down there and I had a meeting with you? And he's like, okay, that's fine. So, I go there, and the materials that I brought were embarrassing. We found them many years later. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I went to this guy with this. So I remember sitting there with him and I guess his VP, and we're talking. And again, I've never been in a business meeting. This guy's the same age as my dad. He's a multimillionaire and some kid. And his VP goes, I don't think they can do it. And the movie moment is, I said, Mr. Morris, if you give us a chance, I know we can do it. So he paused. For me, it felt like 30 minutes, but it's probably a few seconds. He goes, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to give you 2 test ones, see how you do, and we'll go from there, And obviously they went well. And in a way, the rest is history. Now, if he hadn't given us that chance, I probably would have given up on the mystery shopping, because we didn't have any customers, and then the interesting thing was too, I didn't really have a mystery shopping form. He developed okay, this is what I want you to look for. So he literally put together the form for me. So when I went to other companies like the ShopRite, which is a supermarket chain where I am, I basically used the same kind of form that he developed, except I modified it for, a supermarket. I took the same form to other restaurants, to Manhattan Bagel. He wrote the contract. So when I didn't use a lot of contracts, but when I wanted to appear bigger, basically I just took out Pizza Hut and I put their name in there. And I don't think, I only spoke to him like a few times, really, because there wasn't any need to, the program went smoothly, but I don't think he ever realized, really how that changed the trajectory of everything. Because if he had said, yeah, we're going to pass, I don't really know what I would have done.
You sent a sales letter. Did you do anything else to try and nurture that relationship beforehand? And then I guess a follow-up question would be, did you do anything special after you secured that relationship to keep that relationship moving? So you talked about how this was, a defining relationship to the point where you wouldn't have even most likely ended up doing the secret shopping business if you didn't secure them. But back then, being a younger guy, did you have any of that, I guess, wherewithal to work on kind of building that relationship?
I'll be honest with you. I didn't have any idea of what I was doing. I would never have followed up because I never made a sales call. I didn't know what I was doing in the meeting. I was just lucky, that he gave me a chance. And then once he gave that chance, I think that's the important thing too for listeners. If somebody opens that door for you, even a crack, you got to take 110% advantage of that. So this guy was going to have the best mystery shopping reports I could possibly produce for him. And they would be a value, which they were. He never struck me as like the warmest guy. He was more just like matter of fact, you're just one of 50 vendors that we have. So we never had, not a bad relationship, but not a close one. But I just did everything I could to be like, why would you ever, once you started using it, why would you ever want to stop? This is so valuable for you. And then once I had like Pizza Hut as a name that people recognized, then, as I grew a little bit, I sent out more letters. I said, hey, we also work with Pizza Hut, and then, people would be like, okay, well, Pizza Hut is giving you a shot. Well, maybe we can, then it's like Pizza Hut and Bennigan's, and it started to grow that way. But what I really tried to do, if anybody opened the door a crack, I wanted to wow them. Let the serve. They could fire us. My feeling was you could fire us just like a customer can fire you. At any moment you pick up the phone and you say, don't do any more mystery shops. Okay. And that's it. And what am I going to do? I lost the client. So my goal was to wow you so much, you never pick up that phone.
I love that phrase, how you've described it. And I think there's a lot of books around. One of my favorite business books, Customer Satisfaction is Useless. And it's all about making sure that you're delivering that wow experience. One of my favorite places that I talk a lot about on the podcast is Magic Kingdom and Universal Studios in Orlando and all the fun wow experiences. But for our listeners, two really big takeaways that I grabbed from that. The first one is I like how you phrased it, that if anyone opens up a crack just a little bit, you have to be able to seize that opportunity. So when we're going after Dream 100 relationships, once that door opens a little bit, I'm not saying that I want you to dive in by way of, hey, do you want to do some business right away? But you have to start to take those cues and start to strike when the iron is hot. And the second thing that you shared that I really like is once you finally land that relationship, the level of service doesn't stop. And I think a lot of business owners, they look at, and I've been guilty of this many, many times, of, well, we got to focus on new client acquisition, new customer acquisition. And then all of a sudden you start losing a couple of clients because your service was slipping or they're not feeling as valuable. I know that you mentioned the book, I think it was like 35 or 30 lessons before you're 30. Maybe give me, or give our listeners rather, one or two of those lessons that you want to share.
Well, one lesson is, and hopefully my wife does doesn't listen to this, but be extremely careful about working with family. I know a lot of small businesses, you automatically work with family because you don't have a lot of money and you trust them. But I think the problem a lot of small businesses make is that, we hire you because we're related. We don't hire you because you're actually good at the job. So my wife was still married 27 years later. But, she had another job. And once the mystery shopping kind of like, okay, we got a lot of people now. We got a lot of customers. Why work for somebody else? Work for me. I never asked her, though, are you able to do this? Because we had 50 shoppers in 3 different states. And I think the last year we did like 20,000 mystery shops. I can't remember the exact number. So there's a lot of moving parts in there. And at that time, she wasn't able to really handle it. So we had a lot of fights. We had a lot of issues working together. Now, I think, you move ahead, my wife today would be fine doing it, but she wasn't then, And I had other family members, try to help with the mystery shopping. And I mean, it's not very difficult to do, to mystery shop a restaurant. And, they still messed up. But what am I supposed to say? Oh, I can't use this. You messed up. I still got to, oh, thank you very much. So be careful, working with family. And also, you have to have the patience to let the business develop. Because a lot of times when you hear people's stories, it seems like it happens really quick. Like, hey, Mark, started the business in his bedroom at 24. He sold it at 29. But I'll tell you, that first year felt like 10 years. You just have to, it doesn't, every overnight sensation, we were talking about this before, is usually years in the making. Everything kind of like everything that you planted starts to sprout up. But what people don't see is all that legwork, all that work you did in the past years to build everything that they see now. Okay. So if you're not willing to put the time in, it's not going to work for you. You have to have some patience to let it grow.
And that key lesson, it's the same framework with the Dream 100, is that a lot of business owners, they get impatient. And we've all been with the nature of the culture and universe, kind of where things are today with our cell phones and such, we feel that we're entitled to instant gratification. And I want everything yesterday. I want everything immediately. But as Mark is saying, like, you have to plant those seeds for things to start to sprout. And it's the same thing with the Dream 100 framework, or it's those hitting the wins each and every day so that it starts to kind of compound. So love all the mysteries. It's really interesting business, the mystery shopping stuff. Talk a little bit about, so you went through a whole variety of kind of jobs and careers and things like that. Entrepreneurship is a lonely game. Like, it can be very, very lonely at the top, to where like we feel like we have the weight on our shoulders. And I've been in your exact situation. I've laid in bed, depressed. How am I going to get out of this mess? Been through lots of economic downturns. Obviously, everyone went through COVID and that craziness, what it wreaked havoc on small business. Were there a couple of defining, and not necessarily looking to get in the personal details, but rather, were there a couple of things from the entrepreneurship side that maybe led you down the path of high anxiety or depression, or kind of trying to flush that out a little bit so that as our listeners are starting to maybe realize, well, geez, the hiring family or the staffing piece or the money management, or was there something that really moved the needle and kind of escalated kind of the mental illness that you had suffered from?
Well, both my parents suffered from depression, so it does run in the family. I think what hurt the depression more was probably after I sold the business and wrote the book, I was a bit lost. And, I felt like I don't really have a purpose now. I didn't make that much money from the mystery shopping. Like, I'm Elon Musk and I can just disappear, so I still have to do like the next thing. But I wasn't sure, what that next thing was. And then when, I did, because we have 3 kids, so the kids are small. You have to bring money in, obviously, pay the bills. When I got these jobs, I feel like, I was really wasted at them. And I wanted to beg them, like, guys, I can do so much more for you. I mean, like, I was in the Times and I've written a book and, you just won't let me like soar. Like, I want to help you. But, I was basically confined. And a lot of times, these jobs I had like a 2-year limit on them, before I could be like, tell my wife, I can't do this anymore, and the one time it got so bad, I walked out on lunch and I told her, I can't go back. I'm sorry. And then, I went back, to the doctor, so the last time that I was hospitalized with the depression, again, I felt like, where I was working was, again, I was making okay money. I can't complain about it, but I just wasn't used to my potential. I guess, the entrepreneurship it's what drives me. And once we decided on, okay, you can own a business again, you can buy one, you can go do your thing, it really did help with the depression,
I appreciate your transparency. And I think you and I have a lot of similarities in the sense of I had the same kind of emotional roller coaster when I sold my first marketing agency. And it happened within a week of selling it that and similarly, it was a very modest amount of money that maybe I could have taken a year off. So I took a little bit of time off and went on a vacation. It was one of the first times that I was taking a vacation and thought I wasn't going to think about work. And it was the exact opposite, that I literally was sitting on the beach and it was with my wife in, it was Punta Cana. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. I'm like, this was a mistake. What am I going to do now? What's my purpose? And I kind of went on a little bit of a downward track, candidly, for several years, and have bounced around a little bit. And similar to your story, I'm kind of getting back on the heels with the purpose. And I think for the people that are listening, is that entrepreneurship doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to strike the jackpot, and at least instantly, but there's a lot of other ancillary benefits to being an entrepreneur. And one of the biggest that Mark was just talking about was having a purpose and knowing that you're valuable. Like, I've taken jobs on as well and have been in the same seat as you. Hey, these are the recommendations. Here's what we should be doing. Like, you as an entrepreneur, you can see it so clearly of what they should be doing, and they don't take your advice. And it's just a bit of a mind blank, fill in the blank. Like, it just is not good on your soul and your spirit. So I can hear you and sympathize and relate to all of that. Fast forward a little bit then you mentioned how you got into the laundry space, and now you're kind of getting to the point where you're going to be, I think you're writing a book or have written another book about getting into the laundry industry. So tell our listeners a little bit more about that.
In New Jersey, near my house, and it has gone well. It's a fantastic industry. The one thing that I would tell people, it's not quite as passive as sometimes it's made out to be on YouTube videos, things like that. There is work involved, but it's a great industry. And what a lot of people don't realize is that it's a growth industry, and that's kind of contrary to what people think about with laundromats. But the way that its growth is wash and fold and pick up and delivery. In the 1980s version, you live in an apartment, you use a laundromat, your washing machine breaks, you find the nearest laundromat, you do your laundry there until it's fixed, and you never go in again. Today, you just hit a couple of buttons, we'll pick your laundry up right outside your door in garbage bags. The next day it comes back, it's all folded, it's nicely bagged, you just put it away. So really, the market for laundromat customers is huge. Since I do love writing and I've written a couple of books, it just came out Friday. It's called the Laundromat Bible. But the thing that I had a little problem with, there's a lot of information out there, and not all of it's correct, or some people have agendas. And I just wanted to take people in one spot. I wanted them to be able to just read a book and go from like A to Z, instead of like a little information here, watch a video here, read an article there. So I give you the honest way to find a laundromat, run it, and make it successful. And I don't really hold anything back. There are some cons to laundromats. There are some downsides. Obviously not enough because I'm in it, but just like the conversation we're having today, it's not all peaches and cream. And I just want people to know what they're getting into because it is a great industry. But again, if you buy the wrong laundromat, you could, just like any business, you could hurt yourself.
As we were talking before the show started, I said, I was intrigued on the industry. And that's interesting. And it makes a lot of sense. I would not have thought that it was a growing industry, especially with, the whole kind of washer dryer in one combo things coming out now. And I just assumed, everyone has one. But in reality, one of everyone's most valuable assets is time. And even if it's a little bit more convenient, you've got an all-in-one, for example, it's a lot more convenient for you to throw your stuff in a garbage bag, put it outside the house. The next day, it's already washed, folded for you. You put it away, you move on, you're done. So that makes a lot of sense. So everyone, make sure you go and check out Mark's book as well. So that the timing is definitely great for that. Two more quick questions for you. And I always like to end with one particular question. But that you said you've written a couple of business books, but I know you read a lot. You're a student like me of a lot of really great books. And you mentioned the E-Myth and a few other books. But if you were to pick one book for our listeners to just go and read and just giving them the ability to kind of change their thinking or change the trajectory of something, what would that book be?
I'd probably pick The E-Myth because the valuable lesson that I pulled out of there, and unfortunately I didn't learn it with my first business. I worked too many hours, is that you have to work on the business, not in the business. So you buy a laundromat. I didn't buy the laundromat so I can fold everybody's clothes. Okay, I have people that do that. I bought the laundromat so that I could work on the bigger picture, getting commercial clients, growing the pickup and delivery, doing the back end type things. Because I found, when I had the mystery shopping, I worked in the business. And I also did the mystery shops, and I did the reports, and I did things that other people could have done. And what I should have just done was focus on growing the business. And that's what I learned from the E-Myth.
It's one of my favorite business books. It's definitely in the top 10. Before I ask my final question, our interview today and our discussion, I wanted to kind of reverse the roles a little bit here and throw a couple of ideas to you and anyone else that might own a laundromat. So if we think about the Dream 100 framework and those three different audiences that you can go after. So you've got press and media. Number two is going after your Dream 100 relationships, so clients rather. And then that third audience is trying to find strategic partners. If I owned a laundromat, I would focus on audience number two or number three. And as you said, the commercial accounts. So like if you look at the average everyday person, let's say they've got a couple of kids, so maybe they're worth, I'll actually ask you rather than guessing, so how much would the average relationship spend with you in a month?
I have one customer. He's got 6 kids. They spend like $400 or $500 a month on laundry.
I like it. But on average, probably $200-$300 a month.
Yeah, it depends on the family. A lot of people, they also just don't like doing laundry. So it's just something that it takes them. It frees them up to do other things that they actually enjoy rather than laundry.
I like it. So if I owned a laundromat, what I would look at then is my best customers are either A, going to be people that have lots of kids, but to be on that Dream 100 relationship, they need to have the ability to change the trajectory of your business. So I'm adding a handful of these $500 a month customers, while it's great, it's not going to double, triple, quadruple your business. So you definitely alluded to the commercial accounts and maybe looking at ways to get in with hotels or getting in with Airbnb management companies. That would be one path that I would look at. And then the other one that I typically always recommend for any business is looking at, okay, great. So your ideal customer is a busy family that just doesn't want to do their laundry. And if I look at, great, how can I find other local businesses? So you're in New Jersey. How can I then find local businesses that already have my audience and find ways to partner with them. So, for example, locally, I live in Buffalo, New York. There is the one that just quickly came to my mind is the YMCA, which is a gym fitness center. I think they're all over the US, but I mean, they have tens of thousands of families that are members. So if I had a laundromat, I could try and approach them and see if there's some fun ways to kind of build that relationship. I might go after childcare centers or go after martial arts studios and find ways to potentially refer some business to each other and find ways for you to have some of those Dream 100 relationships. So I just wanted to share a couple of nuggets to at least throw a couple of ideas your way to get your creative mind flowing. So the final question that I always like to ask everyone is about legacy. So you've been able to pay it forward by writing books. And I think for me, writing books, producing content is one of the best ways that you can pay it forward. I mean, helping other people without a huge agenda of you're not expecting to get rich on the laundromat book, but you're like, hey, I want to produce something of value to help people. But if I look at, I mean, your legacy, how do you want to be remembered? Is there something that kind of jumps to your mind?
Yeah, I just want to be remembered as a good husband, a good dad. And you know what? Like, if you knew me, if we crossed paths, even for an afternoon, yeah, he was a good guy. I liked him.
I like it. Where can our listeners go and learn more about you?
They can go on my website, which is markcsordos.com. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. You can find my book on Amazon.
What was your book again? I'm sorry, was it The
Laundromat Bible?
Perfect. The Laundromat Bible. So there you guys have it. Mark, it was an absolute pleasure to have you here. Make sure you guys listen and you pull out. There was a lot of really great one-line nuggets. I'm a huge fan of pulling out the one-liners that I can then take and implement. But I mean, candidly, my favorite part was just how your legacy of not even, I don't want to use the word simple, but it was more just an authentic legacy of I want to be remembered as a good guy. So I hope everyone enjoyed today's interview. Make sure you go and check out Mark's website. We'll make sure that we link it in the bio. Mark, again, it was a pleasure to have you here. Thank you ever so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So I will let you scoot and make sure listeners take action from what we are teaching. Listen, pull out the nuggets, pick one thing that you are then going to put in practice. Michael Tasner signing off. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. I'll see you next week.